I'm the Irish guy, and if I'm a Leeds United fan, then there's a strange taste of sick in my mouth, as if I've just eaten an entire pudding filled with baby vomit. The media just seem to be accepting that Kalvin Phillips moving to Manchester City is absolutely fine. That obviously there's going to be more chance of him marrying a horse than sticking it out at Ellen Road for another year, right? Lads, am I the only one who thinks that this transfer stinks of utter disrespect? Good gracious, this is a man nurtured and moulded by Leeds ever since he joined their academy age 14. Why couldn't he become a loyal one-club legend, dedicating the rest of his career to the club? I mean, this man could have become an Ellen Road legend. I mean, unlike the last 15 years, Leeds are in the Premier League, so what's his excuse? Honestly, he could become the next Mark Noble, someone who just retired to a flood of tears, being held up as West Ham's answer to Aragorn. But Phillips, oh, he's about to become the next Fabian Delph. I mean, someone who's going to have the football legacy of a shoe. In about 10 years, nobody will remember who he was. And honestly, just like Delph, Phillips is going to be another loud Yorkshire accent wallowing on the Etihad bench. I mean, people seem to be under this sort of illusion that Guardiola will suddenly turn Phillips into a world-class midfielder. No, that's about as fanciful as saying you're about to go live in a yogurt pot. No, again, this guy is just this decade's Gareth Barry. I mean, Manchester City are a club who would love to sign an English central midfielder, but lads, they're usually all about as exciting to watch as a librarian picking his nose on the bus. Under this big money regime, they signed Gareth Barry, Jack Rodwell, James Milner, Owen Hargreaves, and old Frank Lampard and Fabian Delph. A group of men about as thrilling to watch as boys on eating brunch. I promise you, Phillips is another one who will fade into the background. I mean, by Halloween, most Manchester City fans are going to be so bored of watching his negative 5-yard passing, and Ozzy will just choose to spend an hour staring at their crotch instead. I think Leeds have been sold down a river. This man who apparently told Leeds he only ever wanted to move to Manchester City, and that the club should reject every other offer out of hand. Now, on the face of it, oh, this was loyal Kalvin Phillips, a Leeds United hero who'd have sooner burnt off his face on a stove than dare to wear a Manchester United jersey, right? Lads, please don't misconstrue this. Please, can we not make a martyr out of Kalvin Phillips? I promise you, if circumstances were different, this guy would have had absolutely no problems joining Manchester United. I mean, I've seen this all before. I mean, sure, it's easy to turn them down when they just finished 6th in the Premier League and just 2 points ahead of West Ham, while the other company who wants you has just won their 5th Premier League title in 6 seasons. I mean, it's a bit easier to say no. But I mean, are we forgetting the entire reason for this Leeds-Man United rivalry actually started because of the Industrial Revolution back in the 18th century? I mean, even before that, it was a city rival stemming from the War of the Roses. The cities of Leeds and Manchester are direct rivals, and yet this proud Leeds man has absolutely no problem moving to live in that city next week. If he really did have Leeds blood pumping through his veins, then as soon as he was informed of City's interest, he'd immediately throw his phone in the bin. I mean, does anyone really think it's noble that this man isn't joining Manchester United because he's joining Manchester City? It doesn't wash with me. To me, Alan Smith was a far bigger Leeds icon than Phillips. I mean, a born and bred Leeds supporter at Ellen Road. I mean, when Phillips was 20 years of age, he was playing 10 games a season and finishing 13th in the Championship. When Smith was that age, he was scoring 18 goals a season for a club in a Premier League title race. Oh yeah, and with him up front, they were just 1 game away from reaching a Champions League final with Bayern Munich. I mean, this man who cried when the club were relegated. A man fighting tooth and nail for the club in their hour of need. But Phillips, last season, he showed he had a body about as frail as an old lady's cervix, and just instead chose to go out in public wearing Gucci brand bin bags on his feet. Honestly, they look like fancy pizza boxes. Smith is a man who swore he'd never join Manchester United. Until he did. But he was joining a monster club in the Champions League, of course. I mean, don't think for 1 second that if Manchester United were offering monster wages and Champions League football, don't think for 1 second that Kalvin Phillips wouldn't also have thrown his Leeds United loyalty into a hole in the bath. If Man United had just won the league, while City were finishing 7th, then Kalvin Phillips would be at Old Trafford in a heartbeat. I mean, if it was good enough for Smith, it's good enough for KP. But by limiting Leeds United to just 1 bidder, he's essentially cost the club about £40 million. I mean, good grace, go back to January, and West Ham were offering 50 million quid. West Ham. I mean, if the Hammers are choosing to offer that, then I'm sorry, if the bidding war was then opened up between 4 or 5 clubs, then Leeds would be selling this man for close to 80 million quid. I mean, Christ, look at last summer. Aston Villa cashed in on Jack Grealish for 100 million. I know that was a release clause, but still, if for some reason this soggy mini Russell Brand, someone who right now is just a glorified tabloid drunk, most likely found at a Magaluf strip club, drinking Heineken out of the bathroom sink, if he told Villa last summer that he wasn't signing for Man City, because according to his Twitter he used to hate the club, then lad, they'd have probably been forced to sell him to Man United for about £75 million instead. I mean, release clauses are nice to have. I mean, Luis Suarez had a £200 million buyout clause in his Barcelona contract. When he did leave, it was for £5 million. Release clauses are not legally binding. You can sell them for a lower fee. And so Phillips, if he really did care about Leeds, then he should be wanting to get them the highest possible fee. Let there be a bidding war. I mean, if Manchester City really wants you, then let them prove it. Instead, they bought you for less than what Man United paid for Fred. I mean, what are Leeds supposed to do with 45 million? But I'm sorry, if he's from Sweden, Hungary, or was born in a McDonald's toilet in Australia, then sure, 45 million makes sense for a player of his ability. But lads, he is an England international. Think of the English tax. And yet he's costing the same price as Sebastian Haller. I mean, Barcelona paid more money when they signed the lump of over-the-hill pizza in Miralem Pjanic. Lads, 3 years ago, Newcastle were able to charge £50 million for Sean Longstaff. And I think we all know by now that he's about as technically gifted as a snowman made of milk. £45 million for a man who played virtually every minute for England as they reached the Euro 2020 final. How is it West Ham think they can demand £150 million for his midfield buddy Declan Rice, and yet he's getting sold for 2/3 of an Aaron Wan-Bissaka? I mean, make it make sense. Telling Leeds that it'll only leave for the champions of England, it limits their bargaining power. You've allowed Man City and Man City alone to completely dictate the transfer fee. I mean, without a bidding war, you've just railroaded your club into accepting a tiny check. And no, I'm not talking about Pavel Nedved. I mean, Christ above, he is English. Andy Carroll's English and left Newcastle for a similar fee, and that was 11 years ago. I mean, adjusted for inflation, that £35 million in today's market is 102 million quid. So really, Carroll left for a Grealish type fee. 102 million pounds for someone who looks like a human version of Donkey off Shrek. Come on, Leicester got 35 million pounds for Danny Drinkwater 5 years ago, and he's just football's answer to a fat smurf. And it gets worse. According to Fabrizio Romano, PSG were willing to pay 55 million, and he said, "No, I only want Man City." Again, don't get me wrong, it would be weird to see Kalvin Phillips playing in France, and would probably have just been the English Ander Herrera, who in the star-studded PSG team probably gets about as much attention as the guy who goes on tour purely to scrub Britney Spears' feet with a toothbrush. Yeah, you reckon anyone wants a selfie with him? That weird guy nibbling off her dead skin on the bus? Again, I'd be surprised if anybody in Paris even recognized who KP was. But still, even if you don't want to move to PSG, if you don't want to play with Lionel Messi, then just pretend like you do and spark a bidding war between two of the richest sports companies in the world. That would be the polite thing to do. But this whole thing stinks. But it's not just Leeds. He's also cost himself and his agent a lot of money. Listen, I'm guessing this man was embarrassed when linking up with the England squad. I mean, he's surrounded by swanky multi-millionaires with brand deals coming out of their eyes when he's earning just £38,000 a week. I mean, Harry Maguire had those wages multiplied by 10. So yeah, in contrast to them, you know, the Jadon Sanchos and Marcus Rashfords of the world, Phillips probably felt like a peasant who had to raid the bins outside KFC for his lunch. But apparently, because of no bidding war, he's getting Manchester City wages of £85,000 a week. Yes, a lot of money to us, but in football, those are the same wages of Tyrone Mings. I mean, Dean Henderson earns more than that, and he's just the goalie for Nottingham Forest. I mean, Christ, Ben Chilwell takes home 190k a week, and he can't even get in the England team. So again, whoever's advising Phillips here, I can only assume you've got melted Kit Kat for brains. You are making less money than Nathan Ake, and he's a fifth choice centre back who came from Bournemouth. And again, apparently PSG were willing to offer £200,000 a week. I mean, this is just simple negotiating. But instead, they've taken the hint and gone out and signed Vitinha instead. You know, that former Wolves flop. I think Phillips has done Leeds dirty and to rub salt into the wound. Here he is wearing a Manchester City jumper. I'm sorry, the contract wasn't even signed. The medical wasn't even done. And here he is waltzing about in another company's merch. I wouldn't be surprised if Leeds decided to sue him through the nose. I mean, this is all before he's even said goodbye to the fans on Twitter. I'm sorry, this is like seeing a photo of your wife leaving someone else's house at 9 AM, still in last night's clothes, and with mascara running down her cheeks, and with a used condom hanging out of her shoe. Choosing to wear another team's badge before you've officially left, when you're still registered as a Leeds United employee on Wikipedia. I'm sorry, but Phillips is cheating on Leeds. And I'm sorry, but this club deserves better than this. How sloppy can you be? I think Phillips owes Leeds another year. This is a team who helped you get in the England side. And yeah, last season, you were just an injury-riddled hot dog who only managed to help your team win 2 games at Ellen Road. I mean, considering lockdown was the year before, your own fans have barely seen you play in the Premier League. That's a farce! So jumping ship now, when you've missed more than half a season for a club who are nearly stuffed into the second tier. Again, if I'm a Leeds fan, this entire affair just leaves a taste of sawdust in my mouth. Anyway, guys, so what do you think? Let me know, is Phillips wrong? Let me know. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe. As always, I'll talk to you in a while.